Most doulas may not say this. I personally am not a fan of Pitocin, not in early labor. Because when you're in that early labor phase, you can't rush the process. It's gonna happen how it's supposed to happen. If it takes longer than 12 hours, and it just takes longer than 12 hours. But giving the body a synthetic hormone to make it move faster than what it's actually ready for, it just puts moms in distress. Hi, mamas, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kaylisha, and I am a birth and postpartum doula in the DMV area. Today, we are here with my sister, and we are going to talk about her birth experience as she just gave birth to my very first nephew. Would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Mia. I am 21 years old, and 16 days ago, I gave birth to my son, Dominic.
And he's so cute. He's over here in the corner. We hope that he stays quiet at least long enough for us to get, through our questions. But as I said, we are going to talk about her birth experience and see how she felt about it and all of the little different details. Give you as much as we can before he wakes up. So stay tuned. Okay, so talking about your birth experience, were you nervous?
Yes, but I was very excited. So it's almost like an adrenaline rush. I would say that kind of disguised anything that made me feel nervous with having to give birth. I was more so looking forward to seeing my son, but I was scared.
What scared you?
Um, just a lot of like the fear mongering things that you see online and on social media as a new mom or as being pregnant for the first time. You kind of get worried that a lot of those things are going to happen to you. So like the tearing and then having to get a C-section and everything, or even laboring too long, which is exactly what I did. But it's other than that, it's an okay experience.
Okay. So, walk me through when you knew, like the moment you knew you were in labor. What was that like? What was going through your head? What happened?
Let's see. I think the moment I actually knew that things were like starting to really progress, I had come home from work one day, and I want to say it was like 2:30 p.m. and I started to feel contractions. They were as close as 2 minutes apart, lasting about 30 seconds. And of course, that night I had went to the hospital, but I got sent home because I was not making any progress with my cervix dilation, I guess. And I ended up contracting all throughout the next day, which was Thursday. So I kept telling everyone, I'm like, he's not going to wait much longer. Like, I don't think I'm going to make it to next week. And not even 12 hours after saying that, being at work, I realized that I had broken my water. And it was, like I said, it was exciting. Like that adrenaline that you feel like, oh my gosh, like it's finally time. Like he's gonna be here soon. Like I don't know how soon, or I don't know, how far along it'll be. But it that was like the only thing I could think about. Like when is he going to get here? Is he going to be okay?
But from my perspective, her and I were on the phone. Like when she went to the hospital the very first time, I was on FaceTime with her because I was out of town, and it was her and my mom. And I kind of had the feeling that she was gonna get sent home because it wasn't time. I didn't feel like it was quite time yet, and of course it wasn't because she got sent home. And then that next day, I had been talking with her periodically just to see what all was happening, what changes was she feeling. And she did tell me that she was feeling contractions. They weren't super consistent or super powerful just yet, but they were still happening all throughout the day. And then she told me that she saw some bloody show. In a totally separate video, we'll talk about what bloody show is. But to give a little context, she works on the OB clinic at her job, and I worked in the postpartum unit at my old job. So we kind of have a knowledge of what these terminologies mean. But like I said, she told me she had some bloody show, and then we stayed on the phone on FaceTime the night before her water broke until almost midnight.
Yeah.
So we had both fallen asleep, and then I get a call like 3 o'clock in the morning, and she tells me that her water broke. And I don't know if anyone has ever been startled out of their sleep before, but that Mr. Krabs meme where he's just looking back and forth, that's how I felt when I woke up and got that call. So now I will pass it back to her. Her water has broken, and now we are on our way to the hospital.
Oh man, actually, while I was still at the house, I will say I went upstairs to tell my mother-in-law I could not catch my breath. Not because I had walked up almost 3 flights of stairs, but because I was so excited I couldn't even like gather myself to figure out what exactly had just happened. Because it did, like, your whole pregnancy doesn't really feel real. Like, you don't really feel like you're carrying a baby. You're like, are you real? Then it's like the minute everything starts to hit the road and starts running towards where it's supposed to go, like you almost panic and lose your mind. But it's okay. Car seat was in the car, the hospital bag was in the car, and all this time, like I'm waiting for my sister to get to the house that we can go to the hospital. I had to call labor and delivery at the hospital that I work at, and kind of figure out what was going on. I was very antsy, very anxious, so to sit on the phone with someone for 10 minutes just to tell me that I have to go to another hospital was very frustrating because I'm like, I just want to leave the house. Like, I'm ready to have this baby, even though I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm ready to see him. So, yeah, I don't remember calling my dad. However, he called me, and he's a huge part of my birth and labor story. So,
the comedic relief.
yeah, I remember I had called my sister the first time, and she didn't answer, so I called my mom, and I think my mom ended up telling my dad. So, as I'm on the phone with labor and delivery from the hospital that I work at, he calls me in the middle of it, and I'm like, "Hey, Dad, like, what's?" He's like, it's time. Like, it's happening right now." I'm like, "Yeah, Dad, but hold on. Like, I'm waiting on Kay to get to the house so that way we can go to the hospital. But hold on, I'm on the phone with labor and delivery," and I like immediately hung up. So, he kind of took that as, "Uh-oh, something's happening right now," and nothing was happening at that point. But yeah, I think I did like nothing registered with me that you know my water was going to continue to trickle down and everything. Like nothing really hit. Like, oh my gosh, you're in labor right now, like actual labor. So we're like in the car on the way to the hospital, and I'm like, Kaylisha, like, drive faster. And she's like, well, I don't want to get a ticket. And I'm like, okay.
Yes, because it would be very bad to get a ticket while on the way to have a baby. So by the time we get to the hospital, we're both like extremely excited. We've got our mama bear and auntie bear slippers on, and we're walking inside and ready to get this over with. And for whatever reason, in our minds, we thought that this was going to be like over that day. It was not. I should have known better, just like as a doula, like I should have known what to expect, and I did to an extent, but I'm also her sister. So I was like playing dual roles at the time, and my emotions were all over the place. But yeah, so we get to the hospital, and she's afraid that they're gonna send her home, just like they did 2 days before, because things have not progressed, so to speak. And she also didn't think they would believe that they broke her water. So, do you remember what happened when we got in the room?
I remember everything. Oh gosh. And like my entire mindset behind that was I wanted to go to the hospital that I worked at. That way, I know a lot of the staff that's already on the labor and delivery unit. So I'm like, if I tell them my water broke, they're not going to look at me and be like, oh, well, you're not telling the truth. Like, we're going to send you home. So
I don't want to cut you off, but the reason why they did not think that she was actually in labor 2 days prior to this is because at that time she was 37 weeks and 3 days.
What was that, a Wednesday?
Yeah.
2 days.
37 weeks and 2 days. So they were kind of like, it's not really time yet. Let baby stay in there a little longer and continue to cook and be ready to come out. But yeah, so just that little tidbit in there. That is why she got sent home, because of the time frame that her labor was in. But now that we're here, water has broken, and I'll give it back to you.
So, I was really nervous and afraid, but my nervousness and fear kind of showed in like an irritability. So when they would come in and be like, oh, like, we're going to do this test and actually make sure that it's, fluid that's leaking and not, you just peeing on yourself. It's like I hear that and I'm like, why would you think that I am peeing on myself? Like, I have barely, leaked a few drops throughout my entire pregnancy. Why all of a sudden would I just full out empty my bladder in the middle of the night? So, just hearing things like that, and then they're like, oh, well, it took you up to the monitor, and then the monitor didn't seem like it wanted to cooperate too well. Then I don't like to be wet, like clothing-wise, anything like that. So the fact that, I had already completely undressed and put on the gown, they put a Chuck's pad up under me, and of course my water just kept going. Once it got to be too full, I removed it and put a new one there. And of course they were like, try to keep it under you. That way we can see the fluid that's coming out. And I kind of was just like, we'll see about that. I told them, I'm like, it was a few leaks at first that woke me up. And then it was just like a big gush. And then on top of that, I went to go use the bathroom to see if anything else would happen. And I saw my mucus plug. So I'm like, I know that it's time. Like, these are all the stories that I hear about at work, and I'm actually living it now. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, it's go time right now. So,
and also all the things your doula told you to look out for.
Oh yeah,
just
of course.
Saying.
Of course. My lovely doula.
So, about this doula, tell me who she is. Tell me about her. Did she help you? How did you feel about having a doula? Just go for it.
I would say that having my sister be a doula, it was kind of like perfect timing, because to be honest, I probably would not have trusted anyone else to be my doula. Because I'm very particular. So to have someone who kind of already knew how I was, it helped a lot, because it's like, even when it was time, I feel like she was very on top of everything. Like, I didn't really have to ask for much, I'll be honest. She was way ahead of the game, like with trying to get me to eat dates and whatnot and drink red raspberry leaf tea. Of course, I was stubborn and did not do any of that. But
stubborn has been all her life.
I did do the stretches.
You did.
Which, we can't knock that.
No, it worked out.
Yeah. Definitely did not do perineal massages though. That was.
She would have thrown up. She doesn't do like gross things. Nothing grosses me out at this point, but she's very like queasy in the stomach. It just doesn't take much to make her gag.
No, not at all. So, even like in the early stages of my pregnancy, having a doula, it was very reassuring, because it's like, a lot of the times when you have just a doctor or a midwife in a clinical setting, it's almost like, you're only doing this because it's your job. Like, you see me in the exam room, you see me in the clinic because you get paid to do this. So being able to go home, or like even in the middle of the night, like, hey, Kay, like, what the hell is going on right now? And she's texting back like super fast. It's like, oh, okay, now I can take a breather, I can go to sleep and not worry about anything else. Or to have the holistic side of things and not really the doctor side of things, or even like the hospital setting side of things, like, oh, here, take this medicine because it'll help with this. It did ease my mind a lot, because I'm like, well, I don't want to take any more medicines. I was already taking baby aspirin and prenatals, which of course I was more than willing to take, because I did not want to go into preterm labor with preeclampsia or anything. I would absolutely recommend a doula just for the comfort of everything. Not even just because you need someone in the hospital with you to advocate for you when it is time, or just to have another support person outside of your doctor or your midwife. It's like having a friend, a very close friend that you will need throughout your pregnancy.
Yeah. I will say, I think we had a good time that first few hours of being in labor because we're very goofy and we're always joking around or goofing off doing something silly. So we were enjoying ourselves in the labor room, like looking through all the drawers and stuff and touching stuff we had no business or whatever. Her dad walked around the hospital room with gloves on for the longest time. I don't know why, but he did. He thought he was doing something, but whatever. But it stopped being funny. Oh, we had a really great nurse initially, and she's still great. I want to make sure that I say that, even though the next part of what I'm saying is coming up. Um, this is something that I did warn my sister about, but because she was GBS positive, she did not feel comfortable laboring at home. I suggested that she labor at home as long as she possibly can until it's time, like, to really go to the hospital. The more relaxed your body is in a familiar environment, the quicker your labor will progress and the more relaxed your body will be to allow for things to, progress, because the uterus is a muscle. Your pelvic floor is full of muscles. All of those things below the waist need to be at a relaxed state to allow for a baby to come out. If everything is tense, nothing is going to happen. And hospitals tend to make people tense up and just a little more, because it just looks like a hospital. Like,
involuntarily.
Yeah. Like your home looks like home. Your couch, like we're sitting on, this is comfortable. You have, all the foods that you like to eat. It's your comfort place. The hospital just literally looks like a hospital. There's wires everywhere. You've got IV bags, pumps, machines. The baby's being monitored. There's just so many things that make it not like home. But like I said, she was not comfortable laboring at home for so long because of her GBS positive status. So we went to the hospital a little earlier than what I would have liked to. Well, both of us, honestly. But also because where we live in the DMV area, it was like almost an hour to the hospital that she would have delivered at. So she was like, I'm not waiting. I don't want to, have this baby on 95. So let's just hurry up and get there to prevent that from happening. So once we get there, like at the hospital, we're all checked in. They believe that her water has broken. We're admitted and everything on the L&D unit. We meet a nurse. Not going to disclose any names because it's not important.
I forgot her
but
name.
Did I forget? I think I forgot her name too. Well, we remember the ones that ended it with us, so we'll talk about them. But this particular nurse, she was great because she came in like on board with everything that I was trained on and that I learned as a doula. She had this like laminated thing full of positions for, at what stage of labor you're in, like as far as where the baby is, station wise in the pelvis. She had things for the -3 to -2 station, and then mid pelvis, and then the outlet. Like it was very cool. She came in with a whole arsenal of things, but it was somewhat like a little bit of trickery because it was kind of like she was gonna allow us to think that we were progressing labor and doing things her way until it wasn't like that anymore. So being that her water had broken, once your water breaks, you have like a 24-hour like time clock to where after that 24-hour period, the OB or the midwife, like hospital staff, will start getting kind of weary of having you be in labor for that long because of the risk of infection. Once your water breaks, that is the barrier between baby and outside world. So there is no longer that layer of protection there, and the more, that space down there is open and exposed, the greater the chance of infection is passing from, outside of your body into baby. And we don't want that. So they already had her on a time clock from the moment she stepped into the hospital. And we got there around 4 o'clock in the morning. We were admitted to the room around 5:30 or so. And then we met the nurse about 7 o'clock or whatever. Probably as soon as she walked in the room, actually before we even got admitted, they had already started talking about the possibility of having to augment her labor with Pitocin to help kickstart contractions and make them stronger. Most doulas may not say this. I personally am not a fan of Pitocin, not in early labor. Because when you're in that early labor phase, you can't rush the process. It's going to happen how it's supposed to happen. If it takes longer than 12 hours, and it just takes longer than 12 hours. But giving the body a synthetic hormone to make it move faster than what it's actually ready for it just puts moms in distress. It makes things hurt a lot worse, and it gives you the feeling of that, oh my gosh, it's almost time, and then you're like 3-4 centimeters, and that's a long way to go for the amount of discomfort and just the intensity of the contractions, for that to be happening for as much as it is. It's a lot, and I'm not a fan. So this nurse started talking about pitocin, and you might want to think about that. And she was very good to advocate for herself. She may have looked at me to say, is this the okay time to like say that I do or don't want this? But as far as vocalizing, she was great about that. We asked that no one else come into the room and mention pitocin or epidural. She wanted to go 100% natural. So I will let her take it from here to tell you about how that experience was going forward.